Ladies and gentlemen, everyone in between, of course, I'm sitting here with Mr. Russ Rankin, whom you may know from being a hockey scout or all his time singing in the band Good Riddance out of Santa Cruz, California, and of course, solo musicianship. And of course, back in the day, doing some independent writings and such. I want to touch on some of that too, because I haven't seen that in a minute, but I would like to see more of that, right, Russ?
Me too.
But yeah, so welcome to the Family Cast. Food and Music is Life. Yes, the reason I have you on, sir, is because not only are you a musician and you also have stuff to say about certain things in the food industry, but as well as being a lover of coffee. I know that from a couple of people that know you love coffee, and so I definitely want to talk to you about that as well on here. And I see that you're in a room with music equipment behind you, so we're going to talk about all that fun stuff. And of course, I'm a Good Riddance fan, and so I don't want to touch too much on that because you talk about that a lot probably in your interviews. And I do want to talk about your solo album, which just came out pretty recently, right, a couple months ago, all across the world, different labels. I know there's at least 2 and 3 involved in that process. Three. Yes, SBAM, and yeah. So listening to that, and of course, all-star group, onlycrime. Shout out Aaron and all the other good musicians that you work with in that. So yeah, lots of fun stuff. And unfortunately, we only have a certain amount of time to talk. So, sir, if we can get started on this, how's it been going with the new record?
I'm not really sure as far as like units sold and the business end of it. I'm more so just
how do you feel?
I think it's like, because it's been so long since my first one, I just really wanted to put together something that reflected how much I've learned in the interceding time. My first album, I was just starting to play out as a solo artist. I was really just sort of teaching myself how to play guitar properly. I've always been a guy that like would just bang on a electric guitar, like Johnny Ramone chords.
Yeah.
Write Good Riddance songs and then kind of show them to Luke, and then he would play them better. And then when I started doing the solo thing, I wanted to learn how to play acoustic, and I didn't know how. And it's quite a learning curve for me. It was anyway. And when I recorded my first album, I was just coming around to it. Like, I didn't even know what a capo was. I didn't use a capo on that first record. I had no idea what that was. Like, the first stab at it, I think it turned out all right. But like this album, I think I have learned some things over the years about what I wanted out of a solo album. And I think I got better at playing, I hope.
Yeah, for sure.
And just experimenting more with different elements. I don't know. I just feel like it's a stronger album, as it should be. And I'm happy with how it turned out. And I was really happy that I was able to do it at the Blasting Room with people that I know who were so helpful and so inspirational in helping me get that done.
Yeah, well, congrats on it. It sounds really good. I mean, yeah, I don't want to say it's night and day from the Catalonia, but it's good. It's really like, it is a different sound. You've matured. Of course, it's been a while since you wrote the other one, but also it's just the clarity on it and just the production value. And I don't know, there's obviously other musical instruments on it, but the things that you're saying come out loud and clear, and I can hear that it does sound similar to some of your other writings and your other music projects, of course, but like, it's you. And one thing I did want to ask is, how do you know when a song is going to be for which band or whatever, yourself or Good Riddance or onlycrime or even other stuff?
It's pretty. So I don't write music for onlycrime.
Okay.
It's usually the music for that band is way over my pay grade as far as what I could render on an instrument. Like, there's a song called Just Us, which I wrote. And there's a song, you know what, that Sedated I wrote on the first onlycrime album. And then Just Us is on the second onlycrime album. Those are songs that I wrote on guitar. But generally the onlycrime stuff is way more like just fucked up chords and oblong time signatures and just things that are like, I'm just sitting there with a notepad and a pen and just trying to hang on by the skin of my teeth, and
you're like, guys,
not fall
wait.
behind. Yeah. So when I'm writing, well, typically I'm either writing for Good Riddance, or like in this case, when Stefan hit me up from Spam to do this record, I hadn't been thinking about a solo album. I didn't really have anything.
Okay.
And so I sat down like with the focused intent of writing a solo album. So I was in that mindset. I think that once I start playing something, it's pretty clear what it's for, because the Good Riddance stuff is going to have faster chord changes and it's going to lend itself to a more aggressive approach, whereas the solo stuff is going to typically be a little more laid back, simpler chord structures, basically just a bed to lay a vocal melody over. So those are sort of like the North Stars that I would use if I was writing.
Yeah, good hockey reference there. Do you have any kind of like songwriting rituals for that kind of solo stuff, where you go out surfing or like you meditate? Or because I hear a lot of good melodies in there, and some of it is a little almost reminiscent of like Tony Sly too.
Well, that's a huge compliment, because
I hear it a little bit. I heard it in
that's the man right there.
Contemplating Last Day, or Considering Last Days, or some
Considering the End.
Yeah, Considering the End. Yeah, just really melodic, but you're saying something super serious, and I just felt that one.
I tend to be, when I'm writing proactively, like whether it's Good Riddance or this, I make myself pick up my guitar every day for at least 2 hours, whether I'm feeling it or not, and whether anything comes of it or not. I just sort of do that exercise, and generally like that will start forming into being productive. Sometimes like I'll be out in the water and like a line of lyric will come into my head, or a vocal melody, or I'll be driving or something like that. Anytime that happens, as soon as I can, I try to get someplace where I can commit it to paper, or
before you forget it,
or something. Yeah, like there's so many things that have come and gone, just and as I'm older, and all the pot I smoked when I was a teenager, it's like I probably have like 4 or 5 brain cells left, and it's tough up there. And so I'm trying to not let that stuff come and go. But yeah, I think every songwriter's process is different, and the way people get inspired. It's interesting for me to hear other people. I paid for a Zoom masterclass kind of thing with Rhett Miller, who is my favorite songwriter, and there was like 150 of us on there with him, and watching him write a song in front of us, like watching his process was really, really cool and inspiring.
Yeah.
And so it's just trying to like talk to other songwriters and think, cherry pick their best practices and see what works for them.
Why Rhett Miller, if I may ask?
Years ago I was getting tattooed, and the tattoo artist, he hates punk rock. So if you're getting tattooed by this guy, you're not going to hear any punk rock. And so he was playing an old 97s who I had never heard before. I'm not a country guy, but I was like, wow, this is like, it kind of sounds like X, and it kind of sounds like it's got some punk in it. And so I just dove into the old 97s at that time and became a fan. And then just realizing for me, I just feel like his lyrics and his songwriting are just top. Like there's nobody better. And like when I hear a Rhett Miller song, whether it's a solo song or old 97 song, specifically a few I have in mind, like it just makes me want to quit ever trying to write music again, because there's no way I'll ever get anything that like, approaches that. Yeah, like why even bother? Like time to go see if they need help at Taco Bell, So I love his songwriting, and so getting a chance to sit in and be kind of a fly on the wall for his process was really cool, and I learned a lot, and I've taken it to heart, and I used some of the things I learned on the new album. But everybody's different. All the songwriters that I know are different. For me, I try to take the blue collar approach, like pick up a guitar every day, whether or not you want to, whether or not anything comes of it, but just get in the habit of banging on the guitar. Maybe it's while I'm watching a hockey game or doing something else on TV, but like have that guitar in my hand, be banging on it. And sooner or later, it's like, whoa, those 2 chords sounded really good together.
Yeah.
Like, I wonder what comes after that. And then like, oh, wow, let me try to do some vocal melodies over this. And I'll sing like, just kind of some gibberish words to like get some kind of like flow. Yeah. So that's my process, and for better or worse, it's worked up till now.
I mean, I know we talked a little bit offline that you said you weren't very chefy, but that's exactly what chefy. That is the chef at least my punk rock chef approach is that's how I do it in the kitchen too. With maybe I'm not classically trained in culinary school or, you know, high art degree in culinary, but that's exactly how I make a menu or a pairing or a song in the kitchen. Or I mean, a food in the kitchen is that same approach. And I think it's been to my, not my benefit, but like that's how I've learned to do it. Basically, I pick the chefs that I like or the food that I like, and I say I want to make it my own way. You know, or is there another version I can do of that that's like that but better? Like, you know, or I don't know. So I totally get that as far as putting it into my own career field, doing it that way. I call it the punk rock approach, and because maybe I'm not measuring things the same way, or like it would be songwriting, or maybe I'm not.
Yeah, well, like I
You know,
never took a music class. Like I don't know what I'm doing really. Like I just sort of I taught myself how to play guitar because I was tired of trying to write lyrics of other people's things. And then when Tony said like I should start doing solo stuff, I'd never thought of it before. And then I wanted to learn how to play acoustic guitar properly. I didn't want to just try to do Johnny Ramone chords on an acoustic guitar. And so all of this stuff has been like not, it hasn't come super easy to me, but it's one of those things like you're talking about with the cooking. Like if it's what you're passionate about, then you find a way. Like you
yeah,
can, there doesn't have to be a textbook way to do it. And a lot of us in the punk world, whatever we do, you know, as far as like our profession or stuff, we're self-made or self-taught. You
yeah,
know, we like
DIY.
society was like, you got to do this. And we're like, no, fuck that. We're going to do this.
Yeah,
And it may be a little bit tougher, but I'm going to be more stoked at the end of it because I
yeah,
discovered it myself.
yeah, and yeah. So I think that's a good approach for a lot of things in life. I guess just making it a daily habit, ritual, whatever you're going to do to get to where you're going, right? And I know it's been a long journey for me doing that, but like of course I've written, you know, I'm not always a master chef, but I make some good shit. And there's going to be some things that people don't like, and I'm like, well, that's I liked it. I don't know. How can I change, make
Yeah.
it better
I
for
mean,
you?
if I
You know?
was, Sting, or if I went to Juilliard, I might not have these problems, but like I didn't, that's not me. Like
Yeah.
my thing is very blue collar. Like I'm going to grab that guitar, I'm going to play it for 2 hours at least. And I'm going to trust the process that sooner or later something's going to come up. And then for me, typically when I'm writing, the first couple songs are the hardest, and then things start flowing after that. Like it's once that machine gets turned on, like it's kind of hard to turn it off. And
Yeah,
that's
you get
how
in the
it's kind of
zone.
been for me. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. So does that mean you're still writing? Are you continuing to write more solo stuff? New albums are in the works because you have so much flow?
Well, like today I was banging on my guitar, and like I stumbled onto a melody that I liked. So who knows? Like
Yeah.
it's I'm playing my guitar more now, doing these guitar exercises for my fingers, because I noticed I just played some East Coast shows, and the person that I was playing with, who's a much better guitar player than me, I asked them for feedback, and they said I really needed to train my fingers better,
Oh,
because
okay.
acoustic guitar chords, pretty much every finger is on a string. Like you're hitting every string on the guitar.
Yeah.
And
Calluses.
so but for me it's more so that like I'm not hitting them, there's buzzing. I'm like kind of not hitting a note clean, or I've got my fingers
Yeah.
like touching another string. And so this person's feedback was that I need to get my fingers stronger and more accurate, so that when I fret these chords, every single time they're clean.
Nice.
And I think that's great feedback. And so and then they sent me a YouTube video of a guy who does these crazy exercises on the acoustic guitar, and I've just been doing that, and they're really fucking hard, and your hand hurts like hell by the end of it. But like I'm just like,
Yeah.
okay, if I do this enough times, my playing will get better, because that's, you know, like I can sing okay. I think these songs are fairly solid, and I like doing the live thing, and I think I've gotten better at the banter and the presentation of it, and I
Mhm.
enjoy it. But that, like my actual guitar playing is the biggest opportunity for me. And so how can I address that and improve that?
I guess that's good to know your goals and like not, I hate saying weaknesses, but yeah, opportunities, weaknesses to as a as you progress to get better at things.
I worked at Apple for 15 years. Whenever you were fucking up, they would tell you, these are your opportunities. So I just thought also
See,
that was really,
you've definitely heard that. Yeah.
yeah.
I know my brother worked there for a long time down here. But I was bummed to miss you when you played in San Diego. You were touring with Trevor.
Yeah.
I missed that show. I had 4 weddings that weekend, so I was like, ah. But how do you like when you come down to San Diego? You like, same vibe as Santa Cruz, or what's that like?
I love San Diego. I just, I mean, our band has always had amazing shows there ever since back in the day when we used to play Soma all the time.
Yeah, I've been to most of them.
And we've had great fans in San Diego, and I just love the city. It's like Santa Cruz. I mean, it's a beach town and
yeah
and stuff, but I love the vibe there. I've always loved San Diego. Like I would go there, like if the Giants were playing the Padres, I would go down
nice
for a weekend and just watch. I mean, I haven't done this yet, but I've always thought about it because like I want to go to a game at Petco Park, and I played a solo show there with Dropkick Murphys. I opened for them at Petco Park, but I would love to go to a Giants game because I'm a Giants fan,
so you can say you played these stadium shows.
Yeah, like my backstage when I opened for the Dropkick Murphys was a suite in one of those little like rooms that like little private balcony.
Yeah, it's a nice stadium. I even saw you. I saw you one time here with onlycrime and at the Zombie Lounge, and it was like 50 of us in there, and like that was super fun. And then next 2 weeks later, I saw Zach playing in. I mean, not Zach. Zach Blair was playing. He played Rise Against at the Sports Arena. So like went from like 50 people at the Zombie Lounge to like however many people.
Yeah, that was the tour.
Crazy.
He was leaving us, but he wasn't going to leave us hanging for that tour. So, but he was definitely. It was sort of bittersweet because we were playing these shows, but he was every all day long. He was like had his headphones on, learning all the Rise Against songs, and yet he had one foot out the door.
Dang.
He was on to bigger and better things. We're happy for him. Whenever anybody makes it out of the barrio, you're happy for him.
Exactly. That's it. I mean, that's kind of how we say it in San Diego too. But how long have you been vegan? Actually, how long have you had a vegan diet?
Since 1993.
93. Okay. Yeah. That's and then it's just like 100% always true to that, or okay, that's good.
I don't know any other way to do it. I know that there are some things out there where people are like, oh, I don't know.
Have you learned how to like do any of the cooking for yourself in that realm? Or I know you said you're not very chefy, but like because
I do the bare bones. I suck. Like I'm not a good cook, and I'm not willing to take the time to try to be one. And there's like 3 recipes that I know how to make. And if there's recipes like longer than like 7 lines, and then I'm out. Like I'm not going to do it. So I can check the lines on the recipes. Yeah, I can cook like 3 things without fucking it up too bad. So
hey, I tell my students you only need to learn really how to cook one good thing, and it goes from there. It kind of evolves from that,
But I know people who maybe like you, like I know people who are especially in the vegan world, becoming vegan, like before they knew it, they loved cooking where they never had before because they were like sort of left on their own. This is especially true, longer time ago, when like, wow, okay, like what my parents are cooking me is not going to work. What my friends want to eat is not going to work. Like I'm on my own. Like I got to figure something out. And so people by necessity would start their own thing and then find out that they fucking loved cooking.
Yeah.
And so like, and I know tons of people like that. That's just not my story.
Yeah. I mean, you can only put your focus in so many things and give it 100% each time, or not 100% to each thing. So stick with those 3. I'll send you some recipes, whatever. One of my sales reps brought me in vegan crab cakes today. That was pretty bomb. So it's inspiring to learn about all these new ways to make vegan alternatives and stuff like that. We have
that's what I mean. Like people who love being creative, they're like, oh, cool. How can I do that? Or that looks cool. Or like, what if I made this meat thing, but vegan? Like no one's ever done that before. Like I'm going to find a way. Like people are channeling their creativity in this way, because it started out just by necessity. Like I'm vegan, I'm on my own, I got to make my own food. And
Totally.
like people are discovering like this is super creative and I love it. And like, what else can I do? You know?
It sucks when I'm sure you've probably experienced it in the music world. I made a recipe and I partnered with this company, a chef company, and it was a vegan ceviche, and it got kind of big or whatever, but there was a lot of flack saying that's not really ceviche and blah blah. It's not. I'm like, I know. I'm trying to make alternatives. I'm trying to make this new dish or whatever. And I feel like it's could be the same in songwriting. It's like I'm not trying to be the next No Effects or whatever the case may be. We're doing this stuff, and I know that I feel like Good Riddance always had a special place in my music catalog because it didn't sound like a lot of the other punk bands that I was listening to or whatever. Is more on leaning in my heart. It was more leaning towards the hardcore side of my heart, like hardcore punk stuff. And you were always a nod to California's hardcore scene and stuff like that. So I always thought that was special. And I think that's why I really latched onto the band itself, because the stuff you're saying and the way it sounded and the history behind the sound. And I don't know, I like, I guess I don't know, I guess the approach that the band took, and I could tell the way the songwriting was, and I could also hear some of your influences in that. So that was always, I guess it's that punk rock ethos of we like these bands, but we're gonna tread this path. Do you feel like you're writing that way on your solo stuff, and you're collaborating with these other musicians that make your solo stuff sound so big and everything?
I think that this solo album, my newest one, benefited from the blasting room and just from the superior production and the equipment and the combined knowledge of like 3 or 4 guys that have forgotten more about recording great music than I'll ever know. But at the same time, my first album was so cool because my friend Paul Miner down in Orange at his studio, he's produced it and engineered it with me, and neither of us had done anything like it before. And we were both just like, fuck, what do we do? And we just tried stuff.
Yeah.
And we just stumbled into at the end of the day, to me, that record sounds better than it had any right to, mostly because of Paul's engineering and production work, and his little piano lick melodies, and his idea, hey, let's put this here. And so I just benefit from working with good people. And in the blasting room, it was mostly Bill doing my vocals and Andrew Berlin, who was engineered and produced my guitar. And I learned a lot from that. I've never played that much guitar in my life. I realized
what do you mean,
that
they made you play more?
No, when you record with your band, there's always parts of the day where or the week where it's not your turn.
Oh yeah.
But when you do a solo album, it's never not your turn. And
right.
So me and Andrew would do guitars every day for 4 hours, because I would do one acoustic guitar on this side. I'd grab a different acoustic guitar for that side, maybe a third in the middle, maybe some electric guitar. I did all the bass, maybe do some leads.
2 at the same time.
Yeah, it was just my calluses were just so brutal. I'm not a guitar player. I'm not used to that kind of constant hammering. And so, and then we take a break, and then Bill would show up, and I would sing till 9 o'clock at night. And it was the same thing every day. So it was a lot of work. But it was worth it. And the things that Andrew was having me do on guitar, I learned a lot from him, things that I use when I play now that I didn't think of before. So I'm super grateful.
That's really cool. That's you sound like you stay pretty humble with all your stuff. You said, you talked a little bit about onlycrime being about your pay grade, and you had a good team producing this, and you attribute Good Riddance to being good members and stuff did you learn something along your life that made you think like that? It takes a really good surrounding you to make yourself better?
I think, without getting to psych evaluation, I've always been really down on myself, and I don't know why. I'm not ever really I don't think I have much to offer. I don't think that I'm very good at anything. And I don't know where that comes from. I've gone to therapy for it, and no one's ever figured out. My parents were kick-ass. They were supporting and loving, and I don't know what that's from. I know a lot of people who are the opposite, who aren't that way. And maybe I didn't think it was appealing when I saw it, and so I sort of reverted to the other way. I'm not really sure, but I don't like to be boastful. I don't think that I'm doing anything that great. If people dig it, that of course that makes me happy.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm really fortunate to have been able to travel the world and play music. Not everybody gets to do that. So
Hmm.
I'm super grateful for all those opportunities, but I don't think I'm anything special.
Oh, well, I'm sure some of your fans would beg to differ. Have you written any songs about that feeling or that that place in your life or whatever in your all of your career? Have you
No,
touched on
I
that
mean,
at all?
there's a lot of songs about just like crippling depression, and
Hmm.
mostly like Operation Phoenix. I was in a really, really bad place spiritually and emotionally, and like that record is just like I can't listen to it. It's so depressing. It's so like dark, and not a place that I would want to ever go back to or be in for very long. And like maybe some solid music came out of it, and maybe for some people it's relatable and it helps them. But for me, it's a reminder of like what'll happen to me if I don't take care of myself spiritually. I can get back to that kind of place.
And you find some of that spirituality in the water, just being
Yeah,
out
for
there
sure.
with
And
the
or just
vastness.
like or just staying like right sized, like staying a worker among workers, like doing things for other people, like being of service,
Hmm.
th- helping my friends, like calling people up that I know and asking how their day is. Just things to like not think about myself. Anything I can do to not think about myself. Be
Do you have
other
people in,
centered.
yeah. Do you have people in your life that are calling you and asking you to in that?
Yeah, it's a give and take. It's like
Okay.
I have men in my life that I call and or text and like just check in, and I'm current with them. And like if I know somebody's going through like a breakup, or I'm at the age now where a lot of our parents are in failing health, and so
Yeah.
a lot of my friends and my peers are beginning to deal with that kind of stuff, which is,
Yeah.
both of my parents passed away in 2020, so I know all about that. And so
Sorry.
it's a huge, it's like everyone knows it's going to happen, but there's really no way to prepare for it. And so
No, no.
being able to be a source of support, or even some like helpful information, like, oh, I went through that, this is what I did,
Hmm.
kind of thing, like that enables me to be of service.
100. Yes, exactly. That's a man. I I don't know. Are there not to touch on it too much, but are there songs that you listen to that help you like kind of get through those times when you're feeling like low on yourself, or do you go to certain music like Rhett Miller or Bad Religion, or I
Well,
don't know?
so like that 99 was when we recorded Operation Phoenix, and
Hmm.
that was as bad as it got. And then that year we came back from a European tour, and I was like suicidally depressed,
Oh man.
and I was thinking to myself, like I get to travel the world and play music. I have a place to live. I have people that care about me. Like I shouldn't
Hmm.
be feeling this way. Like this shouldn't be like this. And then I got myself squared around again spiritually, and got back into the sort of the rituals and the routines of taking care of myself that I had strayed from, and I have not strayed since. And so I've been able to weather some pretty rough times in the intervening years without ever having to like regress to that level of like self destruction,
Hmm.
mentally and emotionally.
That's pretty huge, actually. Because I know a lot of people struggle with that. My wife's a therapist, and like, so I don't know. We just talk about it a lot. But would you mind if I asked you what you do, kind of to spiritually center yourself, or do you yoga, do you meditation, centering, anything like that?
No, my like everything else, my spirituality is pretty blue collar. Like it's just hitting my knees and saying a few simple prayers that I was told to say, and checking in on other people. It's mostly just being of service, like
Hmm.
being available and being of service, and putting others ahead of myself, like thinking about other people and
Hmm.
what can I do for them. And it's mostly inside of kind of the recovery world, but it's also just day to day, like, hey, like out at the store, like, hey, you dropped this, or like, oh, you
Yeah,
only have one thing, please go ahead of me. Like just little things like that,
being
that
good.
when I'm not doing that kind of thing, I'm thinking about is myself, and I can't even see other people, what they may or may not need, or how I may be of service. And so being able to be open to that, and
Yeah.
to be able to like put some good into the world every day a little bit, and to see what I can do for other people instead of what can I get out of it.
Yeah.
That all that stuff keeps my mind right.
That's huge. Is that part of PMA? Is that part of like AA recovery kind of model thinking? Or that's really like that's
It's
really
recovery stuff. Yeah, it's all
it's
recovery
self-aware.
stuff.
That's really big self-awareness that a lot of people don't even know about themselves, you know,
But
like
it's things that other men taught me. Like it's nothing that I like. I don't
yeah.
get to. I'm not going to pat myself on the back for it. It's like it's things other men taught me.
What I well, that's good. I think what I've learned also from other men is it's sometimes it's okay to take some credit for some of the stuff you did, even though you acknowledge that you have that community of warriors around you and stuff like that, like, or these guys, men, friends, brothers. I think that it's okay sometimes for us to say, oh yeah, I guess I made that good food and they liked it, so yeah, I have a good chef team, but thank you, I appreciate that. So if I say, hey, you wrote this really good song and I can relate to the lyrics in that, I'm not saying I'm not trying to, I guess, pat you on the back per se. I'm more like, dude, I could totally relate, and we relate on this human and
Yeah,
spiritual
no,
level.
I know what you mean. For
Yeah.
me, progress is I can receive that, and I can say thank you. Whereas in the old days, I would have tried to talk you out of it or said you were
Yeah.
wrong.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so today I can say thank you, and I can take it in,
Yeah.
and I
Well,
can appreciate that that's somebody's point of view, and that it's valid, that it's real for them. So that's progress for me.
yeah, that sounds like mature progress. I mean, I didn't know you in 99, but like that's huge for you to be able to
You're
acknowledge and
lucky.
appreciate.
It
Yeah.
was no, it was
Hey, would you also say though that space in your life made you produce like some or make some good like that record and like put that energy into that record? And it's like, I know you said you can't listen to it, but it moved you on into your career. You said Symptoms was your favorite record after that, right? So it puts you into that space to move on to some of your best music, right? Would you
yeah,
agree with that?
maybe
Or
you have to bottom out to move on. Like it's funny, like 99 was the lowest it got for me, but then that same later that same year,
Mhm.
like I met the first girl that I would ever propose to, the first time I really ever like was in love with somebody.
Hmm.
And like a lot of good things started happening but it was like not until I had like pulled myself out of the wreckage, and like reaffirmed my priorities, and got my spiritual deal
Yeah.
straightened out, and like recommitted to these other things, then only then was I put in a position for these positive things to happen. So it was one thing following the other. I think that a lot of
Yeah.
people love Operation Phoenix. It is the joke in our band. It was because, like you said, we're a Fat Records band. We're a melodic punk band. We're from a beach town, and like members of our band were heavily influenced by the Cro-Mags and Killing Time and Sick of It All and
Hmm.
the Bad Brains, and harder bands, like a different style of music.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we have one
Hmm.
foot in each world kind of all the time. And so on our fans, like you said, um, even though we were a Fat Records band, which is known as being like a happy party melodic punk kind of thing, in 96 when we toured on our second album, and there was enough photos out by then of us, of like my bass player and I wearing like SSD shirts or Integrity shirts, or like we started having some hardcore kids coming out to our shows who would have never gone to see a Fat Records band.
Hmm.
And we started having a little bit of crossover there. And so, but it's hard to live in both of those worlds musically. And so I think that Operation Phoenix is either, if you're depending on your point of view as a fan of our band, is either the album you've been waiting for us to make, or it's the album or it's the album that made you stop liking Good Riddance. And there's no in between.
You actually saw the line in the sand, like,
Yes.
yep.
Yes. Yep.
Man. Well, I mean, it's definitely a turn, but I like the turn in the direction it went, or it still
It's
is
a
going.
hard, dark, angry album for
For
sure.
sure. For sure. Man, I saw you guys in San Diego one time on tour with AFI and at the drive-in. That was insane.
98.
98. Yeah. That was kind of when AFI was just changing, just changing a little bit. But as the first time I sat at the drive-in, I was like, this is like the most insane tour I've ever seen. Because I think prior to that, I saw you at Soma with the Fat Circus. It was like a $5 ticket, all the new Fat bands, Till, yourself, Strung Out, No Use,
Yeah.
and I think one other. And that I was like, dude. So I decided I decided then and there that it was like I liked the harder sound of it wasn't like the Fat Record sound necessarily. It was like the harder sound of those bands. And then hearing you guys and influences, it got me into other stuff, of course, right? All the stuff that you guys, the harder stuff, really, because everyone talks about the bigger bands, Clash, Ramones, and stuff like that. But like, I wanted to dig deep. I wanted to get deeper into what does Black Flag listen to and like all this kind of stuff too. So where does it go from there?
Well, you're from San Diego. I mean, Battalion of Saints is one of my
Yeah,
favorite bands in the entire world. I've
got
got
the
a picture on the
tattoo.
wall. I got a picture on this wall of Chris Smith playing guitar. It's a signed Allison Braun print of Chris Smith playing.
Damn.
Rest in peace. Like,
Seriously.
that guy was a shredder. Like that band, Battalion of Saints, is one of my all-time favorites. Like, when I think of San Diego, I just think of Battalion of Saints right away.
Yes, as do many, especially when in the hardcore world. But if we could shift a little bit to, when did you find your love for caffeine and coffee? Was that at teenage years, like staying up late, partying and doing that, or?
I don't think I have any kind of. It's funny. I'm trying to figure out why I have this rep with the coffee. I'm trying to figure out where that comes from. Like, I don't know that I am that much crazier about it than anyone else, but maybe I am. Like,
maybe you tweeted about it at one
know.
point. I don't remember, but like, I think there was a time when it was like you were like die hard with Starbucks, or I mean, Aaron mentioned it to me a couple times, but maybe
Aaron is one to talk. Like, Aaron, like, if you cut open Aaron, coffee will come out of him.
bleed.
Yeah,
he's like nonstop. But no, that's fun. But it's like you particularly like your Starbucks, right? Your Starbucks drinks.
Yeah, it's tough these days with like the union stuff. Like, the company's not. It's pretty sad right now. Sad state. So what happened with Starbucks is, I mean, I catch a lot of flack for going there, and people's reasoning is not off, but initially it started in the 90s when we'd be on these long 4 or 5 week tours.
Mm-hmm.
And we'd go to a venue, we would load in and sound check, and then there'd be some time between sound check and doors.
Right.
And to avoid being a jackass, like, sometimes I would leave just to be by myself, to decompress, to not be around everybody, because we're touring together. We're like
in a van.
And what I found was that it would be summertime, and so it's hot, and we're touring through the Midwest and wherever, and like, I would find a Starbucks, and it'd be this like chill music playing. It would be air conditioned.
An oasis.
And I knew there would be soy milk. I knew it. And I knew that if I paid $4 for like a mocha or a latte or something like that, that it would be good. Like, if I used to never go to Starbucks, I would go to like a mom and pop place, and it was so hit or miss with people who either could give a fuck about what they were making or didn't. A lot of places didn't have soy back then. It's probably not the case now, but I knew that every Starbucks would have soy milk, and it would be air conditioned, and it would be not a punk rock club. Like, it would be someplace that I could like write and journal and like
some respite.
It became like an oasis. And so it wasn't like I love the company so much I can't wait to find a Starbucks. It was more like kind of out of necessity, and having some sort of like sterile respite from like the punk rock grind. That's how it started. That's how it started for me. And so, but like nowadays, if I go to a city, if I've got a friend there that's like, we got to go to this coffee shop, then I'm always going to trust somebody who knows a good spot.
That's good.
Like in San Diego, Trevor was like, we got to go to this place, and you took me to a spot, and it was kick ass. And like,
we got some good ones. Yeah, for sure.
Anything like that it's like, screw Starbucks, I'm going to go there.
Okay.
If someone's got a good place. But if I'm in a city and I don't know anybody and I need to go somewhere, like, I know that place is gonna have what I need to get.
From Seattle to Tokyo, you should be able to get the same drink at Starbucks, right?
Yeah. it's but the whole thing now with like the way that they're treating their employees is like it used to be. I don't know if this is true or if it's just one of those urban myths. Like Starbucks treat their employees so well. This used to be a thing that I would always hear, and I knew people that worked at Starbucks and they never had anything bad to say about it.
Right.
But now with what's going on, I just think the company it looks terrible, and so it makes a person pause, just decide if they still want to support something like that or not.
Right. So yeah, so you move into the Keurig cup territory.
Yeah, I became a Keurig when I just bought a house this year. It's my first time, and
Congrats.
thanks. And
Yeah.
I have all new stuff, and I had gotten a Keurig because there was something appealing about being able to at like 4 p.m. just making a cup of coffee, like not.
Yeah,
And
like
I'm not smart or clever enough to use a coffee rig to make one cup. I don't know how to do that. And so this is, but at the same time, I knew and had heard about the single-use plastic and all this stuff. And so the bargain I struck with myself was that I would throw the foil away that's on top. I would compost the grounds, and I would recycle the cups, which because they are recyclable.
Okay.
And so that's what I do with each one. I rip.
And
Yeah.
Have you found is it a good quality drink that you make out of it?
I have no problem with how Keurig tastes.
Okay.
How the K-cups taste. I go back and forth between Starbucks, French, and Verona or Italian, and Pete's Major Dickinson's blend, which I really like.
The Pete's one is okay. So you like the kind of the actual, like the heavy roast flavor.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. So you don't like the donut blend and like, the Mountain Coffee Company and stuff like that, because those are mediums. Those are all mediums.
Yeah. I don't think that they look. The packaging didn't attract me. But now
The graphic design.
that you're saying that they're, yeah, I think I just chose the right. I chose the right ones.
Aha, classic look.
Yeah.
Cool. And then I know that you are a Greg Graffin Bad Religion fan too. You've mentioned a couple times as far as lyrical inspiration, trying to fit as many Greg Graffin style vocabulary into songs in the early stages. But then you kind of learned how to, like, I guess, do more with less, right? In the vocabulary and the lyrical stuff, is because like on Forgotten Country is like propitious creatures await him most virulent demise, like stuff like that. And then now it's like you get kind of to the point and you're like, maybe every once in a while there's some Greg Graffin-esque vocabularies in there, but now it's more like, it sounds like you're also quoting some philosophy majors or talking like that, and like I don't know, getting into people's brains without confusion of the lyrics. Does that make sense? Going from the first record. Yeah.
I think a lot of times people or bands, like I think about this with, so the biggest, the biggest, heaviest, most gnarly band ever from my hometown was a band called Blast.
Yeah. Surf and Destroy.
And so Blast is like, it's, there's nobody better. But at the same time, if you listen to the Blast first album, almost every song sounds like Thirsty and Miserable by Black Flag. And if you went and saw Blast live at that time, and I only know this from Bill, because Bill was in Black Flag at that time, and Blast would open for them, and he'd be like,
yeah,
this band is trying to be us, from the Armstrong see-through guitar to like the way the drum kit was set up to everything, and their motions on stage and things like that. And so like I still love every Blast album, but as each album went, from especially the second one, It's in My Blood, they began to get their own thing. Like they didn't sound like Black Flag that much anymore. They sounded something else, and it was heavy and ominous and like destruction like Black Flag was, but it was not as derivative. And each album was more so that way. And so I think that that's what happens to a lot of bands. Like I'm right up against my influences because there hasn't been as much time passed since I first heard it. And then, oh, you're going to give me a microphone? Well, this is what I know. And then as time passes, and as a band coalesces and has more time together, I think a band can't help but start to develop its own sound, even if it is still sort of reminiscent of something. It's not going to be as immediately derivative as the first couple outings. And that was the case for Blast, even though I love everything they've done. But like if you listen to Take the Manic Ride, which is the last album Blast put out, it doesn't sound like Black Flag, really. It doesn't sound like anybody. It just sounds like Blast. And so that's kind of how it's supposed to go, I think.
Yeah, the maturation process of the journey, right? Like because obviously your albums and songs have changed all the way to even now with your new solo records. Like you sing, of course we accredited this to the Bill and the production team, but you sing when you're doing your solo albums definitely with a lot more clarity in your vocal cords, like you're more of your head and chest voice, if you will. I think because it just sounds clean, and I could picture you singing that, playing it solo. I caught you one time at the Parkside in San Francisco. I think you're playing with Joey Cape. I just happened to be living there at the time, but I think it was your very first outing as a solo artist, I think, when on that tour, if I'm not mistaken, or at least
No,
that's the first time I saw it.
But it was still pretty new. Yeah.
Pretty new. Yeah. And I was like, and I actually didn't know that you were doing that tour, because somebody invited me to go, because he was doing like press for Joey or something like that. But anyways, I was like, oh, what? And it wasn't, and I think Kevin Seconds was playing too. Does that sound correct? Honestly,
I'm not sure. I know the show you're talking about. It wasn't a tour. It was like a one-off for me. Like
you came up from
they
Santa Cruz, right?
asked me up to play, come up and play. Yeah.
So I was like, oh, this is really cool, because I had just seen you not too long ago with the full band going off, and then you're playing here. It's like it was just such a like nice. It wasn't so much of a dichotomy, but it was like definitely a different singing style, But I don't know. I feel like you have fun. You have fun when you're doing the solo stuff, right? And you're doing, you're
it's a work in progress. Like this last tour I just did was cool because the shows were so small. I was in Europe before. I was in Europe in March, first time headlining solo there.
Nice.
But this tour, like in New Haven, Connecticut, I played, and I'm not kidding, the only people in the club besides the person I was on tour with was the sound person and the bartender, and then an older couple who just happened to go out to that club on that night. They were not there. They were not there to see me, and they were sitting at the bar, and there's like all this space, and then there's the stage, and I'd done a sound check and everything, but I was like, this is going to be silly to be way over here up on this stage playing to nobody. Like, so I just grabbed my guitar and I just basically walked over to where this old couple was, and like,
there you go,
campfired, and like had to joked with them and talked to them and asked them about themselves, and I think they had and I gave them a couple shirts at the end of the night, and
heck yeah.
So not a single person paid to come see me play in New Haven, Connecticut, but it worked. It helped me to be able to go, well, fuck it, like I still got to play a show, and like, how can I make it so these people at least have a good time?
Yeah.
Get better with like the repartee and like the joking around and stuff, because I have a reputation as aloof and stoic and serious and all this stuff. And so like, and I don't like that about myself, and I'm not sure why that's happened. And so it gives me an opportunity to be able to practice being a little more outgoing and loose and gregarious, and just to have fun and to not worry about it. Like, dude, nobody came to see you play. Get over it. Like, just have a fun time.
I love that. And so tell me, was it one of your funnest and best shows ever? Just in that aspect of it?
No, but it wasn't
not crowd wise, but
like if when you leave the club, you could be like, fuck, like nobody came to see me play hot, like, great, time to go see if they need help with Taco Bell. Or
there you go.
You can say like that's a Bill thing. I stole that from him.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So, or you could say like, that was cool because those two people, I mean, they're like not in my target audience for sure, but they'll probably remember that night.
Totally. And now there's going to be two people at New Haven, Connecticut wearing your shirts, and people are going to be like, hey, he just played here, no? Did he? Yeah, we were the only ones there. And they have rad fans, two new rad fans.
Yeah. No, in Europe. So in Europe, I went, and like most of the shows were between 30 and 50 people, which is great. But one show in Cologne, there was only 10 people, and it was at the same room that Good Riddance would play in Cologne. like a stage and all this stuff. And there was a lounge to the side, like a different room where bands usually sold merch at, where there's a lot of couches. And then when the promoter told me how many pre-sale there were, I was like, dude, I don't want to get on that stage. Like, this is going to be silly. Like, let's move these couches in here.
Yeah.
So we moved all the couches in, and the 10 people that came sat wherever they wanted on these couches.
Nice.
And again, I just got off the stage and I went up in front of them in like campfire, like living room style.
Yeah.
And they were talking to me between songs, asking me questions. We were joking around, like, and after the show, some of those people said it was like the best show they'd ever been to, or like the most fun they'd ever had. And like,
yeah.
So like, even though it wasn't great numbers wise, and if it goes on like that, then maybe it's not for me. But the fact that, like, instead of like just being pissy and being up on stage, like going through the motions, like this show sucks, like being able to give people a night that was memorable and that was maybe a little bit different. And it helped me to be malleable and to be able to adjust to the situation. And like, no, actually, I think the right call would be to not be on stage. Screw the PA. We're going to campfire and we're going to have like a living room chat. We're going to be like, and it was really, really cool. Because a lot of those people had followed my band for years,
right,
and had never had a chance to ask these questions or to be that close, or to, I don't know, like it ended up being a really cool night.
I love a good living room show, like I love going to those. So maybe we'll set one up one day if you need something in San Diego. But I know I don't want to punish you for too long, but we should talk about a little bit about hockey, and we should talk a little bit about your actual like writing that's non-musical writing. If you're still doing stuff, because I know that you were right on. So scouting for the Devils, right?
Not scouting for the Devils. I wish.
Not scouting for the Devils. Well, I mean, RUSS-rankin NJD, that's the New Jersey.
They're my favorite
Devils,
team.
Yeah?
They're my favorite hockey team.
Team-wise, I got it.
So I scout for a major junior team. So
that's right. That's right. Sorry.
There's a major junior is the Canadian Hockey League. It's a North American league made up of 3 sub leagues.
Okay.
There's the Quebec League, the Ontario League, and the Western Hockey League. The Western Hockey League has 22 teams throughout Western Canada. So from Manitoba to BC. And there's also 5 teams in the Pacific Northwest. So Portland, Everett, Seattle, Tri-City, and Spokane. And I work for the Tri-City Americans. And so the major junior is where players that are about 17 to 19 years old play, the best of the best. And in our league, you've got to be from Western Canada or the Western United States. So basically Minnesota, Texas, West. And if you're from any of those places, you're eligible to play in that league. And you can play as early as 16 if you're really good. And you can play up till you're 20. And the NHL drafts people when they're 18. So there's a lot of draft eligible players in our league. And we draft players when they're bantam, which is 14 turning 15. And so my responsibility, we have scouts on my team all the way through Western Canada.
Okay.
My responsibility is California. So I watch bantam aged players throughout California. That's my job. And
what are you looking for?
I'm identifying players that I think project to be Western Hockey League players. I mean, it's hard because I'm watching them when they're 14. And I got to think about what kind of player they're going to be when they're 17, 18.
Okay.
And then I have to do reports on them. And then my job is a little bit different than our other scouting staff in Western Canada, because down here, most people don't know about the Western Hockey League. Most hockey parents in California, they're positive their kid's going to get a D1 college scholarship.
Yeah.
And for some of them they do, but for a lot of them they won't. And they don't know about the Western Hockey League. And there's a lot of politics behind it that to the minutia that it would probably be boring for anyone listening to this, but ultimately my job is to debunk what parents may have heard about the Western Hockey League, and to educate them on the league and why it's a good opportunity if their kid wants to be a pro hockey player. And then and also I have to kind of get some kind of commitment out of them, verbal, like some interest, or else we're not going to waste a draft pick on somebody that's not going to come. So there has to be some interest. There has to be some legitimate, like, interest from a family and from a player. for our league and our organization. And then that like our Bantam draft is every May. All the teams pick, and yeah, we just go from there. And then
So
next year it's this.
you travel around a lot, like to different hockey like areas and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
so I go. There's tournaments. There's a Pacific Districts tournament every year, which I'll go to if it's in California, and there's the state championships that I go to every year. And then I'll usually, because there's usually four AAA Bantam teams. So Junior Sharks, Junior Kings, Junior Ducks. And then every once in a while, there's another one thrown in. Like this year, there was what were they called?
Goals.
Goals are double A.
Yeah, we got goals.
No, the goals are double A. But I remember one year, the 95 birth year, which is a really, really strong year. The junior Gulls where they were a double A team, but they were basically a triple A team. And they had, there's a guy that played on that team that plays in the NHL right now, Thatcher Demko, the goalie. I watched him play. And then there's a kid named Tyler Moy that played on that team who's playing in Europe in the Swiss league. Yeah, Thatcher Demko was a great goalie, but he got a scholarship, went to Boston College.
Nice.
So, because when players play in our league, the thing is, like, if a kid comes to our league from California, let's say, he's got to sign a contract to play for us. Once he signs that contract, he's burned to play hockey at an NCAA college. So he can still go to college when he's done. He can go to an NCAA D1 school. He just can't play hockey because we give our players a per diem, and so the NCAA thinks they're professional. So it's a big decision in that respect. So if a player is going to come to our thing, they know that they're giving up the opportunity to play D1 hockey. That being said, our league gets them in front of NHL scouts sooner. Our league is a longer schedule. It's more like a pro schedule. It gets them ready for the grind. I just think it's a better path to be a pro hockey player. And the cool thing is, if you play in our league, let's say a player plays 4 years in the Western Hockey League, when they're done, they have 18 months to cash in on their scholarship money, which we save for them. And so if they don't sign in the NHL, they get a year of books and tuition paid for each year they played in our league.
Oh, wow.
So if a player, let's say a player's draft year is 18 in the NHL. So let's say a player's 19 years old, they're done playing in the Western Hockey League. And so for the time they're done, they have 18 months to cash in on that scholarship money.
Okay.
So their agent could be like, well, you didn't get drafted, but I got you a tryout in Germany. I got you a tryout in the East Coast League. So that player can go try pro hockey for a year or even a year and a half. And if they don't like it or decide it's not for them, they can take that scholarship money and go to school. They can go anywhere they want.
Nice.
And the Western Hockey League pays for it. So it's a good fallback. Most of our players in our league end up playing pro somewhere.
Oh, cool.
But if you don't, here's money to go get your degree, to go to law school, to go to medical school, to do whatever.
Yeah.
And the cool thing for California kids is the money that you get is equal to what it costs at UCLA for books and tuition.
Dang.
So you get
quite a bit.
Chunk of cash. Yeah. You take that money and you can go to any school you want anywhere.
How is the Western Hockey League funded?
Through the gates. Yeah, it's popular. Okay. Like it's 5,000-6,000 people a night.
Nice. Okay. Yeah. So how did you get involved with hockey? Like going from punk rock and veganism and sobriety to like being a hockey.
I was into
lover.
hockey before I was into punk. I think I watched the 1980 Miracle on Ice Winter Olympics.
Yeah.
When I was really, really young, and that's what got me into hockey. That's when I fell in love with hockey. And then just trying to being in kind of a hockey desert up here, I just tried to watch it whenever I could on TV and just fell in love with it and wanted to know everything about it and became like that guy that wouldn't shut up about it and was a total nerd. And
oh, great.
My friends were like, my friends were like, oh my God, dude, like you gotta get over it. But I kept on with it and loved it. And getting a chance to work in hockey was just fortuitous. Like I had a friend I met a guy that played in the NHL who was a Good Riddance fan. And that guy ended up being part owner of a Western Hockey League team
Oh, I see.
At that time, which was called the Kootenai Ice in southeastern BC. And in the mid 2000s was when California players, the level of coaching and the level of talent in California hockey, amateur hockey, was getting to a point where California born players were starting to like find their way up to the Western Hockey League. Like suddenly there's these California guys popping up,
Dominate. Yeah.
and playing and doing well. Like everybody's like, whoa, there's players down there like there never was before. And so this guy that I knew was like, told his GM, hey, I got a buddy who lives in California. I think he knows what he's talking about. I can vouch for him. And would it be worth it you guys to have a set of eyes down there? And the guy was like, sure. And so that was my in. I worked for 5 years for the Kootenai Ice, and we won the Western Hockey League championship in 2011.
Nice.
And,
Nice.
Yeah, it was, and so I learned a lot. We never drafted any of the players that I liked. Our team at that point at Kootenai was very Canada centric, and it was very like Saskatchewan and Alberta centric. So there wasn't a whole lot of hope for the players I was looking at. So for a lot of times I felt like I was spinning my wheels.
Yeah.
But they gave me my shot, and I learned a lot, especially from the general manager of that team. And then I switched to the Tri-City Americans. I would see the Tri-City Americans GM in California all the time. And I knew that he was drafting and was interested in California born players. So he and I sort of had that in common. And I've been with Tri-City ever since.
Cool. I mean, it's, I guess if people know you from like singing Good Riddance, or if you tell them, and then you're also a solo artist that has a record out in Europe and touring, you just toured Cologne, but they'd be like, oh wait, what? Hockey? What? Like, I mean, it's pretty unique.
Yeah, it's kind of like worlds collide. I was at a tournament, and like one of a Good Riddance song came on, between the whistles, and
nice. Which one?
Darkest Days.
Aha.
And
nice.
I was also, one time I was down at this has happened a few times, and I go a lot to a rink in El Segundo, the Toyota Center, for the Kings practice.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of I go down there a lot, and I was watching a game, and there was public skating on another rink there, and this dad with his kids came over and was like, he's like, aren't you in Good Riddance? And when I scout, I'm wearing like business casual, like slacks and dress shoes, and
oh really?
the team track jacket on.
Yeah.
Like, I don't look the way I look normally. And
you look like Ted Lasso.
Well, like, it's important to represent the organization and
sure. Yeah.
look a certain way, and I respect that. And so I don't look the way I normally look, and I wear like a golf shirt and stuff. And so I was like, yeah. And he's like, so he wanted to take pictures with me. And that's happened a few times.
Nice.
I've been at a rink to scout, and there's been public skating, and somebody's been, we call it getting recognized. Like someone's like,
recognized.
Yeah. Someone recognizes me from that. So I'm like, I'm there doing something that has nothing to do with music, and yet this thing pops up. It's just sort of funny.
Or your song comes on, you kind of automatically start mouthing the words. They're like, he knows all the words.
No, I just sort of look around, and it's like strange.
Yeah. Well, I mean, some of the music fits.
It happened at my men's league game a few weeks ago too. That was really funny.
Oh, you're playing?
Yeah. I play in an over 35 league Tuesday nights. And
that's how's that feel on the joints, on the
it's okay.
ankles? And yeah.
I mean, I'm old, but I'm in surprisingly good condition for being as old as I am.
Well, yeah, he's still rocking and rolling, recognizing.
Yeah.
So what's the future hold for like your actual like non-musical writings? Like, because you were doing that quite a bit a while ago, right? Like
I was lucky. I was really lucky to be asked to be a columnist for this magazine called AMP through a big chunk of the early 2000s. And I really loved doing that, and I got really good feedback from it.
Yep.
And then AMP went under. I did a couple things for New Noise. I did a few like op-eds. Like Vanessa from Fat, who does our press, would hit me up and say like, hey, do you want to write an op-ed for Alternative Press or Razor Cake or one of these other publications? And I would always say yes, and like do whatever I could do. And then a guy that was a fan of the band, who was writing a baseball column for the Washington Times, asked me if I'd be interested in doing two columns for them, which one could be anything I wanted, music, politics, whatever. And then one would be specifically hockey. And that was maybe like 8 years ago. And
That's cool.
it was big for me in that it was the biggest thing I'd ever written for. And it was also very, like everything I did had to be submitted, and it was critiqued, and it was edited. And I got like really direct feedback about it. Like it made me a better writer.
Oh,
It
good.
made me a much better
Yeah.
writer. It was like a big slap in the face in a good way. Like now I write much differently because of this experience. But then that publication, I began to notice like just sort of how it was shifting, and where its kind of true north lie, and it was nowhere near where mine laid. And so
The Washington Post?
No, Washington Times.
Oh, Washington Times.
Different. Yeah.
Yeah.
Still bigger than anything I'd done before, but not
Looks
not
good
the
on the
Washington
resume.
Post.
Yeah.
Washington Times. And so
There's still time, Russ. There's still time.
So I stopped. And ever since then, I've been waiting for a gig, and I haven't got one. I've been, since I retired from my day job, and I have a house, and this where I'm in right now is my office. I've never had an office before.
Hey.
So I have an office, and I've been like dusting off these memoirs that I've been working on of my time in Good Riddance. And
that's what I was going to ask you.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you if you're going to like get to like something like a memoir, or like what I've learned.
I started writing this thing years ago about our first 3 albums, what it was like, my experience recording and touring on those albums. And then, because 97 was our 3rd album, and 98 I began keeping a tour journal. I began keeping a tour journal from 98 through like 2004 or 5, which would be a separate thing. So I've been writing this. I've been like dusting off this thing, polishing it up, adding to it, editing it, about the first 3 albums. But
what's an example of what you would write about in the first 3 albums? Like, today was this day, or like?
No, that's more like my journal would be like that. This is more like going through recording our first album, what that experience was like for me. And then touring, our first time touring the US was 95, like the Fat Records tour that you mentioned that played at Soma. Just my experience, like the first time out doing this and this.
Oh, that was your first tour? Dang.
No, that wasn't our first tour, but it was our first. That year was the first time we really got out and played a lot. We'd never toured that much before.
Yeah.
And so it's basically my experience, like recording and touring, and like through my eyes, and how did it affect me, like the psychosis, like how I started to slip into this like persona that I'm not stoked about when I remember it, and how I wish there was things that we would have known. Like when you're a band that's from like a small beach town, and you play once in a while, and like suddenly you're an international band that's on this exhausting treadmill of like writing and touring and recording, and like nobody, there's things that I wish people would have told us, like, here, you can expect this and this to happen, and you'll have to know how to deal with this. And we didn't know anything. Like we found everything out the hard way. And maybe it's something that like other people could read and would help other bands or help other people who are thinking about doing that. But mostly it's just a memoir of like what it was like for me to record these albums, to write the music, and to go on tour. And some funny stories. Well, I mean, it's not so much the writing that's hard. It's like, what do I do with it once it's done? So I was asking on Facebook if anybody knew any literary agents, because I would pay somebody to shop it or find a home for it. But I have also, through the years of tour, I would write poetry, or like my stab at poetry was probably pretty crude, but like I have a ton of it. And a friend of mine who's from Santa Cruz, who's an English teacher, an amazing writer. He wrote a memoir, and this publishing house put it out, kind of a smaller publishing house. And we were talking about my poems, and he showed them to the main person at this publishing house. So I'm gonna have a book of poetry come out in the fall,
Oh, hell yeah.
which is pretty cool. I've never had that before.
That's a
So
good
maybe,
start.
yeah. So we'll see. So I'm gonna write this. I'm gonna keep working on this first 3 albums thing, and then I've got this stack of tour journals that I'm going to like painstakingly digitize
Nice.
onto a document that could serve, like, if there was interest there, that would be, it could be another. So it'll be the first 3 albums, recording and touring, and then actual tour journals verbatim from like 98 through like 2005.
Dang. I bet I could say that I think your fan base, yours and Good Riddance, and even through Fat maybe or whatever, it's a big enough fan base that to support something like that. Like, you know, maybe it's not the entire discography memoir of everything, but like at least the first 3 record one, that's a really good, awesome idea. Poetry thing is rad. I mean, it sounds amazing to me. I mean, Trevor put out a book of just his lyrics and people like that, you know, like it seems like a no-brainer because you're already a good writer, and then you have all these songs under your belt. Like, I say do it. Start today, you know?
Well, I'm gonna keep writing these, but then what becomes of them is not is I don't know what to do with that. Like, nobody's beating down my door just yet.
Well, yeah, I mean, just because you said you're waiting for the next gig, but you have all this stuff you're sitting on too, this gold that you're
Yeah,
sitting
like
on.
this is gonna keep me busy. But I loved having a weekly column or
Yeah,
monthly column. Like,
it was
when
good.
I was with AMP, like I was so happy. It was so cool to have that forum and that outlet.
Hmm.
And then with the Washington Times thing, like, I tightened up my writing big time, and I felt like I was in a really good spot. And then that just, I had to get out of there.
Yeah.
So, and I don't, and like the whole way that whole format, that media has changed. I don't know. There's like a million good writers and like 10 places for them to put their stuff. So
Sure.
it's
Yeah.
hard. But I would love to have another steady gig like that, like writing for a publication that I supported and I believed in.
Yeah.
That gave me kind of that much free reign. That
Kitty
would
cat.
be
I
great.
see your kitty cat. You got some pets, huh?
I got 2 cats. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if this is a silly question, but would you be able to ask something like that about to Fat Mike, who they just did a book, and like, you know, however they did it and put it out, like anything like that?
I
Or
could. I would rather just not bother him about it. I'd rather not. Yeah, I would rather not bug him about it. I'd rather kind
well,
of try
you
to
know,
find my own way.
yeah. Well, that's good. That's the DIY ethos you have. But I don't know. I think I personally, you got one sale here. You got one encouragement here. So
Awesome.
yeah, and I know a few others who would agree. But yeah, if we, you know, to kind of wrap, to kind of like land the plane, if you will, like I do want to hear some more, like maybe a nugget of wisdom that you have learned through all this, like the ups and downs of your life, or just something from your family or touring life or whatever. Or and then also we have to do at least one food or beverage pairing with your music, or even like a Bad Religion album or something. We got to put your mind to the test here. You said you weren't that chefy, but I just know you have it in you. So what have
So
you
that
learned? What have you learned?
what have I learned?
Or what's something that you could teach people? I don't know. Give me some wisdom.
This too shall pass.
Yeah, I have heard that before. I'm waiting for it to pass, Russ.
It's really,
How did we get here?
I've gone through like, yeah, I think that I've it's been interesting writing this thing about the first 3 albums, and like
Mm-hmm.
chronicling my like slow retreat into becoming this person who was just full of self-loathing and judgment, and was so withdrawn and not able to enjoy this like awesome thing we got to do. And
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I have regrets about it. And so for me, and I'm a special, I mean, not everybody, like I'm in recovery. Like, I'm not a normal person. Like, I'm a person that is recovering from drinking too much. And so for normal people, maybe this stuff doesn't happen to them. But for me, like, I have to keep spiritually fit. or us, it goes off the rails really quickly.
Yeah, yeah.
And for me, what happened with the band specifically, because I allowed it to consume me, and I became just obsessed with competition and
Mm-hmm.
what other bands who we would consider our peers and friends, even, like, I didn't trust them, and like, what are they doing? And there has to be more people at our show than their show, like just ridiculous
Mm.
ridiculous metrics by which to like navigate someone's life. And also having my own self-worth completely wrapped up in my perception of our band's successes and failures,
Mm.
and how dangerous that is, because it's something that I have no control over. So
Yeah.
if I'm attaching my self-worth to this entity that I have no control over, it's really dangerous. And so what ends up happening for me is, on top of the world one day, I want to off myself the next. On top of the world the next day, I want to off myself the next. And it's all dependent on these outside indicators. And
Yeah.
so being able to be like going and playing to this old couple in New Haven and not having it really wreck me, like I'm still the same person. Like that night didn't define anything for me. Like that's progress. Like that just comes from being spiritually fit and being centered and being having the wherewithal to realize that like dude, you're not that important. Like nobody cares. It's okay. And I think that's what I've learned, is to stay spiritually fit, to not get too far away from the campfire.
That's
And to
huge.
like,
Yeah.
yeah. And what's cool for us too is also our band, Good Riddance. We took 5 years where we didn't play at all. We weren't a band,
Yeah.
basically. And
Those are sad
that was
years. Sad years.
so helpful for me though, because it allowed the band to become like right sized. Like
Mhm.
it wasn't right sized before for me.
Mm-hmm.
And through those years, it in the perspective that you get from that, the band became right sized. So it's like, hey, we're not the biggest band in the world. We're not the smallest band in the world. We're some lucky motherfuckers from Santa Cruz that got to go like all these rad places. And
Yeah.
it's so funny because now when we tour my band, we look at each other, we're like, I can't believe we get to do this. Like
So
we're
rad.
happy. We're happy, like old dudes
Mm-hmm.
that get to rock out together, and we're so grateful.
Yeah.
But that whole mindset was foreign to me for so long when we were
Mm.
grinding. I was so caught up in it. And so I've learned to like, yeah, this too shall pass.
Do you remember the moment that your eyes got open to that you were feeling like that? Like, what am I doing? Or like, like moving forward. Do you remember that like kind of breakthrough?
Well, I remember when the Operation Phoenix, that whole year, I was miserable. And then we went to Europe with Idiot Fingers Louie, and every day I was miserable, and I just wanted to off myself,
Mm.
and I didn't see any way out of it. And I got back home, and I called up my primary spiritual advisor, I guess you'd say, and
Mm-hmm.
who I hadn't spoken to in a while, obviously. And I said, I'm in a lot of pain. And he said, I bet you are.
Mm.
And I said, I want to get back to work. And he's like, let's go.
Let's
And
go.
ever since then, I have not strayed from the campfire.
Let's go.
Like I've
Yeah.
done the things that he suggested, and consequently, like I haven't had that kind of mental state. And since then, I've gone through like really bad breakups. Like that's been the biggest thing. And then like the death of my parents, and
Mm. Yeah.
and also just what we all went through the last couple of years. Like I had, a lot of us had extra sprinkles on top. I had extra sprinkles on top. Like there was like COVID and the George Floyd thing, and
Mm-hmm.
the Electoral
Yeah.
College awarding the presidency to somebody who lost the election, and all of that stuff
Mm-hmm.
sucked for all of us. And then some of us had extra sprinkles on top. Like, oh, you're already bummed about this, and this. Check this out. Here's this, and here's this too.
Right.
And so like being able to get through all of that without becoming suicidally depressed, without hurting myself, without picking up anything, like yeah, this too shall pass. And like what can you learn, and how can you be of service to somebody else? How can you be of service to somebody else in this moment, so I'm not thinking about myself and how bad I've got it, because there's always going to be someone that's got it worse for me. If I'm only thinking about myself, I can't imagine anybody else in the world has it worse than me. And that's such a selfish place to be. And so being able to like think, well, yeah, I'm going through this and this, but like surely somebody else could use some help right now. And then finding that person.
Man,
just finding ways to be other centered.
That's deep and heavy, actually, but I can relate in some ways. But I'm glad that you're here. I'm glad that you didn't do any of that stuff that you were thinking about doing, because you've put out some good music since then. But I would really love to read or hear stuff that you write about that particular instance or time. At least from a third person perspective. I don't know. Maybe it's something that'll be unofficially released or something. But like that's so huge. Maybe it's someday that'll like pour out of you, in some way. Yeah. Sounds like you've actually learned a lot from that. So props to you for that, but
wasn't me.
Well, okay. Yeah. Okay. It was the help that you received and were willing to receive the help too. Some people aren't even willing to receive the help, so you definitely took that step of calling that mentor and everything. So props for that. So take some credit for that, because you're here. But yeah, now let's figure out some kind of pairing that you can do with like your favorite BR album or song. If you have one, if you can think one off the top of your head. Off the top of my head, I might say Skyscraper or Generator, and it comes a little more naturally to me because I've done it a bunch of times. But like how a song makes you feel, how a food makes you feel, or a drink, or your favorite drink at Starbucks, or a blast song. One of my previous guests, Spencer, used to book Shake Cafe down here. He showed me his blast record, and he paired it with Tacos on the Beach with Surf and Destroy, stuff like that. So that's kind of how it goes with that. Or he did like I did a cold brew coffee drink for his one of his band records. So it's just kind of like how the emotions tie together.
I got nothing. I can't even. That seems like two separate universes to me. Like I don't.
They are. That's kind of how fun we have it. Like, so like if you're on tour in Germany and they're feeding you your worst meal that you've had there or whatever, like you don't want to remember that. But
I just don't really eat. I just don't really eat on tour. Like
just coffee.
I'm so self-conscious, and if I'm up on stage and all the people are looking at me, I don't want to be like this just fat piece of garbage flopping around up there. So I'm like super. I just like when on tour, I don't really eat. I just keep things light and lean and
there you go.
And yeah, it's just coffee and water. That's about it. Like
coffee and water. That sounds like an Otis Redding song.
Yeah.
Well, are you listening to anything new and hardcore these days, or are you going back to the roots? What's going on?
No, I'm getting into this band from Pennsylvania called Restorations a lot.
Okay.
And I'm kind of late to the party with them.
Why?
But because they've been around. Around.
Okay.
I feel like there's bands that are like, I call it grown up punk. Like when you're in your, like a band like the Menzingers, who I fucking love, like a band like that probably wouldn't have appealed to me when I was 20 something.
100%.
But now when I listen to the Menzingers, I'm like, yep, absolutely.
I get it. I get what you're doing. Yeah. I could not stop listening to America, You're Freaking Me Out during the pandemic.
Yeah. And so the Restorations is kind of that way. It's grown up punk rock.
Okay.
Like it's dudes that have probably cut their teeth in other bands, and they've like kind of the combined wisdom and battle scars, and I love what they have going on. It's a really tense sounding. Yeah, Restorations.
Okay.
And so I've been listening to them a lot, and I've been listening to a band from Catalonia called Every Night, EBRI, and then Night with a K. And they basically sound to me like the Pogues, if the Pogues were
what?
Catalonian.
So they sing in Spanish?
They sing some in Spanish and some in Catalan.
Nice.
And I think they even have some songs in Basque. Like there's three languages in Spain, So they're from Catalonia. So I think a lot of their songs are in Catalan.
Nice.
And the funny thing is I got into them, and they're a folk band, but they have punk sound. They have, electric guitar, like it's sort of guitar punk. They're obviously from the punk world. and their songs are super political. Like I fucking love them, and or what I can make out from the
Interesting.
lyrics.
Yeah.
'Cause I can speak Spanish, but I can't speak Catalan. And then when I played in outside Barcelona in Europe in March, two of the guys came to the show, and it turns out they're big fans.
Nice.
And their guitar player used to be in a Good Riddance tribute band.
Oh,
Even.
what's that
So
band?
it's so funny. I think they might even been called Operation Phoenix or something like that. I don't know.
Nice. Okay.
But the funny
I'll check
thing
it
is,
out.
like, I hear I'm getting into this band, and it turns out that like two guys from the band like know my band.
Yeah.
So it was so weird how that happened. So I've been listening to them a lot as well.
I'm telling you, your
And
reach is far, Russ. You're all over the place, with the fans.
yeah, I've been listening to them, and then I've been doing a lot of this at my house. I just nerded out and made a smart house like big time. So I have HomePod minis in almost every room. And there's on Apple Music, there's this whole section under browse called Just Ask Siri.
Mm-hmm.
And it's these pre-made playlists. So like morning coffee,
Yeah.
studying, driving to work. Like there's all these playlists with activities. And so I'll just like throw one up like, hey Siri, play whatever. And then it'll be playing in like the kitchen. Yeah, she thinks I'm playing. Hey Siri, stop the music. So she'll play something in the kitchen, and then if I'm going upstairs, I could tell Siri like move the music to the bedroom. And like,
Oh yeah. Okay. Follows you around.
yeah, it's so cool. But I just been throwing those playlists on as just kind of background music for my day, and I find that some of the stuff I listen to, I'm like, it's music I would have never heard. I'm like, that's kind of a cool song.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes me watch less TV, which is always a bonus. But
Yeah. TV sucks.
as far as like kind of our genre that we're in, like restorations, I love, and
I'll check
also
them
just
out.
every night I've been listening to a lot as well.
I'll check those out for sure. Yeah. Well, do you collect vinyl records at all? That's the last question. Do you collect vinyl records? Nothing?
I have a bunch
Cassettes.
up at my mom's house. I have crates of my records from when I was a kid, and
Oh, gee.
there's probably some pretty valuable stuff there.
Yeah, for sure.
Like I was buying punk records from 1983 on. So I have like 3 or 4 crates of vinyl, but I don't know what I'm going to do with it. I don't play or listen to vinyl now. Everything's digital. I'm like of the Spartan, clean, uncluttered living
Yeah,
space
that
kind of
works.
thing.
Plus, you have
So
a
I
smart
don't.
house. You have a
Yeah,
smart
I
house.
just don't have. I don't do records, but I know a lot of people do. Like I sell a lot of vinyl when I tour now, and so does Good Riddance, and
Yeah, I collect.
so
I
do a
got them
lot of
all.
bands. Yeah, so
I,
do a lot of bands, and so I think that's awesome. But I just don't. I don't. I have the records that I bought from 1983 till probably I stopped in around 91 maybe.
mm-hmm.
Uh, so I have. If I actually went
It's
through
a
there and
long
looked around,
time.
there's probably some cool stuff. Probably none of it's in like mint condition. And I'm not willing right now to spend the time to
No,
go through
it's
it
fine.
all.
You know what's in there.
I kind of do, and I kind of don't. Like I'm sure going to be surprised to be like, no way, I
Oh
can't believe I have
yeah,
this. Yeah.
yeah, totally. I love that. I mean, I have every good Riddance on vinyl except for My Republic. So still in ISO, in search of. So, anyways, Mr. Russ Rankin, I've
Sorry I didn't get
appreciated
a
all
pairing
this.
for you. I don't.
No, that's okay.
It's
I
such a
always ask
strange
and see if
concept for me, but
it
I
is.
think
Maybe
I'm probably the outlier. Like most people like to eat food, so.
I mean, I know there's stuff you like to eat probably, but maybe you'll think of it offline, whatever. It's okay though. It's hard to think of it sometimes.
If I could not eat and still survive, I'd be so happy.
Not even like you could survive on just like avocados or something, or yeah, there's I've gone days where I've just had liquid like water and coffee, but whatever. It's all good for me. Yeah. Thanks for all your wisdom, and actually, to be honest, the bravery of trying the pairing and stuff like that, and just knowing yourself, saying this too shall pass and stuff like that. That's actually really huge. So you got to give yourself a little bit of credit, even though you don't want to. I'm saying you should. But I appreciate your time so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Any plans for San Diego for either Good Riddance or yourself?
Nothing right now.
Okay.
I would love to play San Diego. I had probably my best ever solo show in the United States was years ago. Man, maybe like it was a long time ago. I played I played a place that was kind of outside of the main city. Oh fuck, what was it called? It was a club. I was doing these solo shows and none of them were very good. And then I played San Diego at this club and like 150 people showed up.
Nice.
And I was
Okay.
like, I was like, okay, there's someone playing after me that I'm not aware of. And like, there wasn't, it was just me. And it was really, really cool. I wish I could remember the name of the club, but I always remember that. I'm like, wow, that San Diego was kick ass. And then
Rad.
I played there with the Swellers at House of
Mhm.
Blues. I played House of Blues with Kevin Seconds and Steve Soto. And then I played with the last one I was there was the Dropkick Murphys. But those don't really count because like nobody's there to see me. Like
You don't know that. You don't know
I'm
that.
the guy, I'm one of the
Yeah.
people they have to wait through to see the Dropkick Murphys. But I was still an awesome experience for me. Like it was getting up in front of like thousands of people with
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
an acoustic guitar, like it's
Mhm.
terrifying. And to be able to like go up there and do it and like get good feedback and be relaxed and have fun. That was those guys, those are friends of mine, and I was really stoked they let me do that.
That's really cool. Someone's yelling like Mother Superior. You're like, shut up, I'm doing my solo album.
Well, in San Diego, actually, I'm up there doing my thing and like between songs, and someone yelled out like, "We love you, Russ," and I was like, it's pretty cool.
Hey,
In San
see
Diego,
see, it happens for sure. Well, man, come down. We'll go to a Gulls game. Maybe I'll book a house show. What you know, make you some vegan food, do some pairings.
yeah. I have a booking agent now, so I'm sure she's going to keep me busy. And
Oh, good. Okay.
I probably won't need a house show. I'll probably have a legit show to play.
Rock and roll. Well, if you ever do,
A Gulls game would always be welcome. We played the New Year's Eve thing a couple times at that arena, but I've actually never been to a Gulls game.
Yeah, I've definitely seen it at those two, and that was through Soma too, so that's cool. But anyways, man, I appreciate this, and look forward to seeing you soon in any form, shape, or form. Maybe in a golf shirt. I don't know. You know. All right. I'll talk to you sometime soon.
All right, man. Take care.
Take care.
Yeah.
Peace.
Bye.
I know some peace, right on the shoulders of better than me. It's gonna take